That was disturbing. Baby Rizzo here, and we are talking to the void, and the void stares back with this one. Whew. The Poughkeepsie tapes. Well, first, I mentioned that this movie was a white whale of mine that I've been hunting for some time, and did a little research on why I was having so much trouble finding it, and there are actually some reasons why I was having problems locating a copy. Well, the movie was set to release in 2007, but for undisclosed reasons, it was pulled from theaters and, well, it never went to theaters and its release was pulled. About 6 years later, so 2013, 2014, it saw a very limited digital release. And then in 2017, 10 years after its completion, it finally got a Blu-ray release. So, a lot of the time I was looking for this movie, it didn't actually exist in a physical form. So, I guess I was just looking at the wrong time, as it only came out 3 years ago, despite being made 13 years ago. Well, I've been looking for this film for so long that I'd forgotten what it was even about. I remembered seeing trailers for it, and since it had been 13 years since I'd seen those trailers, I'd sort of only remembered the name. I mean, the Poughkeepsie tapes, it's a pretty distinct name, and that it was a found footage film. In my head, somewhere along the lines, I got it crossed and was expecting it to be some sort of supernatural-esque thing, but, I mean, it definitely is not. Now, in my looking for it recently, I did actually read a description and was prepared for what I was in for. This is a serial killer movie, and a very well done one, I'll add. Though, at some point in the past, I'd seen a movie called The Last Horror Movie, which has a very similar premise to this one, but that one's a low-budget B movie, and this is a very well put together and very disturbing. Okay, so this is a mockumentary detailing the, I guess, unnamed killer, though he, for a while, was known as the Water Street Butcher, though that is only one of his crime sprees, as he, essentially, there's hundreds of thousands of hours of tapes of his crimes, and other such oddities, as he seems to film a lot of things. It's not so much a coherent narrative, it's just of more or less a documentary of how the police and FBI were dealing with a spree of murders in the Poughkeepsie area, and essentially and them being led to discovery of the tapes that shed light onto that this is much bigger than anyone had previously suspected. The killer was altered MOs so often and was both classified as an organized and disorganized killer that so many times he couldn't be tied to any particular group of killings. And most disturbingly, early on, he kept one of his victims and used her as a sort of assistant slash plaything slash... This is a twisted movie. That said, it's a very well done twisted movie, and it's one that's probably going to stick with me for some time. Now, this is not a movie I can easily recommend to people who are any kind of squeamish, particularly about plausible entries. I just finished the movie a little while ago, and it leaves you kind of out of breath. This one was an experience. One of the more disturbing films I've seen in some time, at least since The Girl Next Door a couple years ago. It does not... While it doesn't show anything explicitly too graphic, it definitely leaves a lot implied in terms of necrophilia, child murder, child molestation, rape, torture, accept, and balloon fetish. That's also in there. Well, it's hard to say I particularly enjoyed the movie, but I did. From a cinematic point of view, the content aside, this is an extreme film. But a very well done one. I do if you're into exploitation or more extreme side of serial killers, I'd put this alongside another low-budget one, The Hillside Strangler, which was another twisted but very well put together movie. So if that sort of movie is your thing, this one's definitely a one to look at. Well, I would give this one 4 out of 5 MacGuffins, but it's definitely one I could only watch once in a great while. This is not a breakout at a party kind of movie. No, this is an intense film. That said, I do appreciate my friend for finally putting a copy into my hands, and I am glad I saw it, but this is definitely one of those you can't unsee movies, so approach with caution. Just trying to even organize my thoughts to see if there's anything else left to say on this one, but it does a pretty good job at making you forget that it's not just a documentary. Like, they splice in like news footage using what looked like actual news anchors and then like news shows. The FBI profilers do a good job of going over what they're doing and how part of it's looking like it's done for like an FBI class. So it's very well put together. They do a good job for having the killer's tapes be a little grainy or warped, as it's been like over 10 years. The only dodgy effect, there's a kind of a poor green screen effect towards the end, as one of the victims is partially dismembered and still alive, and she moves her severed arm, and it gives kind of a motion blur where it's clearly her just wearing something over her arm for it. So that's like the only downside effect-wise. The acting is done very well. It's mostly just people kind of being shell-shocked at his activities or suffering through them. Very creepy film. Definitely. I recommend it, but cautiously. Very cautiously. Wow. I need a shower.